Hello, I'm JJ Anisiobi and welcome to another episode of the Daily Expresso. This is the place where we talk about the most important stories of the day and where nothing is off limits. Today I'm joined by MP Esther McVeigh, who's going to give me her straight talking opinions on the big issues. Esther, you're looking well, I've got to say. Any beauty tips to share?
Yeah, it's known as extra makeup because you're out in a recording studio. Extra layer of lipstick.
Oh, you work well.
Thank you.
Coming up a little later, we'll have another bombshell clip from our Farage interview. But first, two words. Angela Rayner. She is battling for her political survival after she admitted underpaying stamp duty on her 800 grand seaside flat and referred herself to the Ministerial Ethics Advisor after days of denials of wrongdoing. The Deputy Prime Minister confirmed her tax arrangements after coming under intense pressure to be more transparent about her properties. But she has been left with her reputation damaged and future hanging in the balance. Starmer immediately threw his weight behind Rayner, but faced criticism after Downing Street refused to say when he had been told about her situation. Government sources suggested the ethics inquiry could be completed within days. I don't know about this. People are using the word freeloader to talk about Angela Rayner. Esther, what are your immediate thoughts about it?
Hypocrite, that's the word. Hypocrite, and she's a hypocrite on so many levels. So this was a woman who would be the attack dog for the Labour Party. Anybody with a slight whiff of impropriety, she was calling for them to go. I don't see Angela Rayner calling for Angela Rayner to go when she would have for anybody else. So there's hypocrisy, number one. The second one, this is a party, before it got into government, that frowned upon second home ownership. It said that distorted the property market in the local area, prevented, people getting on the housing ladder. But no, not for her. She can do that. And also she is part of a cabinet that is raising taxes for every other property owner. And yet she is finding ways to reduce them for herself. So this is hypocrisy on every level. And should you speak to farmers, because one of their first acts was the removal of the property rate relief. So you've got people now with family businesses and farmers having to sell their property in order to pay the tax bill from this Labour government. So on every level, it is mass hypocrisy.
But if, as she says, she was given dodgy or wrong advice from a solicitor, that's not her fault, is it? That's the solicitor's fault.
Okay, so let's see, what advice was she asking the solicitor for? And let's see whether she gave that solicitor all of the information of what she was trying to do. Because it wasn't careless, because I'm loving it, right? If you say it was careless, if she'd have paid 40,000 more in tax, she made sure she wasn't so careless that she was actually paying 40 less £1,000 in cash. And she was looking to minimise, let's use that word, minimise her tax, wasn't she? Because she told two different set of tax collectors different information. Stamp duty, her first home was somewhere, but for council tax, she told it her first residency was elsewhere. No, this is hypocrisies, and I wouldn't call that careless. I would call that actually deceit, because she knew what she was doing. She's told Hove one thing for the stamp duty, and she told her constituency something else for the stamp duty, and I will not have it that she's a working class hero, because she's made sure she's looked after herself. I'm out for myself to get a home, right? That's what she's done. And I would say then let's look at somebody like Margaret Thatcher, who brought in right to buy for everybody who was in a council house, who was working class. And she said, OK, let everybody have an opportunity. What Angela Rayner's done is let me have an opportunity and let me do this for me. Now, that to me isn't a working class hero. A working class hero says, I have had a difficult time and I want to make sure everybody else has the opportunities I've had.
So, but then is there a class issue here? If it was a Tory who'd been educated at Eton and spoke with a plum accent, would they be getting as much scrutiny as Angela Rayner's getting?
Absolutely they would. I mean, as I said, she was the first woman calling for anybody, Nadine Zahawi, to go, questioning Rishi Sunak, questioning Jeremy Hunt. Of course they would have had to have gone. She would have been straight for calling for that.
She also describes herself as John Prescott in a skirt, which is a hideous image. But would he have ever made such an error in judgment?
What, two Jags?
two
Jags Prescott, the man who loved to play croquet. No, look, this is what always brings Labour down. It's the do as I say, not as I do. And that is always what finishes them off. Because if you remember, they were going to be whiter than white. They were going to be the adults in the room. Day one, we found out about all of the freebies, whether it was tickets, football tickets, whether it was glasses, whether it was clothes. And yet they had said to everybody how wrong this was. No, it would be better if Labour were focusing on the policies, and Angela Rayner would have been better to be focusing on the policies in the housing department. Remember, she is the Secretary of State for Housing, so she's either completely incompetent because this is what she's in charge of housing. She should know about stamp duty, or she doesn't know what she's doing. So all of it has a bad whiff about it. So as I said, hypocrisy, and I would say not up to the job, because this is the department she's in charge with. And now she's saying she hasn't had good legal advice. Don't tell me, because I know, because I've been in that department, there wasn't somebody she could have turned to in that department for advice. She didn't.
But if she'd done that, then we'd be saying, how dare she use the taxpayers' money to find legal advice? No, she did the right thing to go out and use her own
She's
legal
the
advice.
Secretary of State. And you would say, how does? Because it is part of your job. And I've also, or Rachel Reeves was one of their first actors to bring in more increased stamp duty. And what she's saying is, right, well, let's see how this works. Now, that's understanding your brief.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd say she was too busy trying to eye up the top job, because she's just bringing through law at the moment to prevent, which she was, any of her opponents going for the top job. So you couldn't be a mayor and be an MP. So she was trying to get rid of Sadiq Khan and Andy Burnham, so she would be in a plum position. And I think, you know what, if you'd spent a little bit more time on your job and a little bit less time on sorting yourself out, she'd be in a much better position.
Well, let's say she's probably not now going to get the top job. Who would you suggest Labour replace Starmer with?
Well, I think this is why Starmer's quite safe, actually, because nobody, when you throw that question to somebody, who would it be? Everybody doesn't know who would it be. Now, I'll tell you who I think is probably coming up, because I was watching it on Monday in the House. I think Yvette Cooper might have her eye on it now.
Really?
So you've got people like Yvette Cooper. You've also got people like
Wes Streeting?
Wes Streeting, yes, definitely. And I will be honest with you, there is a lot of plotting going on in the corridors of Westminster at the moment. So all these names I'm saying, they have the cheese and wine, and let's have a little chat. Never been bothered to speak to you before, but all of a sudden let's have that. So, you've got those. People are also saying who's going to be the candidate for the left. And that could be, heaven forbid, Ed Miliband. Because you need somebody from the left, because if Angela now isn't there for the left, who would it be? Though I'm quite sure they'll all be polishing up their credentials for the left and going for. But we've not got a shortage of people going for it.
Would you be satisfied if Starmer said, OK, I'm taking away her department, but she's going to remain deputy leader? I think that's a likely outcome.
Well, he doesn't have any say over that. That would be the Labour Party voting for her being the sort of deputy leader. So he wouldn't be able to. So the odds are what is awful.
She'd have to resign herself, though. She'd have to step down herself.
Well, maybe she would. And I think that would be the best thing that she could do, because, looking at all the polls, depending on which sort of polling you look at, it's a minimum of 79% of the public who want to go on. Some of them are as high as 90% because they see it as hypocrisy. And as I said, go back to that very first point, she was the one who'd go out calling for everybody to go. So I'm afraid it is curtains for her sort of leadership ambition.
Rachel from Accounts, Rachel Reeves, has said she gives her full backing. That's a positive, isn't it? Everyone loves Rachel Reeves.
Hey, look, anybody who says, oh, you've got my full backing, we all know that the next day it usually means you're gone. But for that moment, I think Bridget Phillipson didn't when pushed on it. She said, oh, look, there's a process to go through now, and there's not. I think people will be not providing that full backing any further. And like you say, we should know in the next couple of days what she's going to do. But I think it'd be best for her if she walked away. And again, there'll be more and more questions. Why was she saying a place in Hove was her primary house? And everybody says it's because she's abandoning her seat. because she knew it was vulnerable. She'd probably lose it the next election, so she was already on the chicken run for her next house. So like I said, she was more focused on her, me, my second house, my leadership bids, than she was looking after her constituency and doing a good job. And that always invariably ends in tears.
Okay. This week, we've been bringing you snippets from our exclusive interview that I recorded on Monday with Nigel Farage. The leader of Reform is currently on the other side of the Atlantic on a freedom of speech crusade. And yesterday, he gave evidence to a US congressional committee holding a hearing into whether European laws threaten Americans' rights to speak freely in the US. Before he flew to America, Farage spoke to us about free speech, Trump, and the special relationship. You're flying off to America this week. You're going to speak about the Lucy Connolly case.
Yeah.
What part of Lucy Connolly and her sentencing do you think was unfair or is a threat to free speech?
Well, I think that to make an intemperate comment, and it was intemperate, I'm not defending it, but when you take in sort of context that she'd lost a child herself, 3 beautiful young girls were murdered, the country was bloody angry, the government were refusing us to give us any information about who the attacker was, despite voices like mine saying, come on, level with us, stop this vacuum. A 31-month prison sentence for that. I mean, sexual assault gets less.
Yeah.
It's pretty extraordinary. And then you compare that to Ricky Jones, the Labour councillor who said slit their throats, and he gets nothing. Yeah, different systems, different pleas. I get all of that. But the perception and the feeling that it's two-tier Britain. And now she's out. She's out on terms that will be given to a very serious criminal.
Well, she did plead guilty, though.
I know she did, and I wish she'd never taken that legal advice. But the problem was, it was in the aftermath of what had happened in Southport. And it was perfectly clear the Prime Minister and the judiciary just wanted to crack down on people in a way they never would in a normal circumstance. But I think the way she was treated in prison, the conditions of her release, the conditions she's living under now, is pretty extraordinary stuff. And since then, of course, we've had the passage of the Online Safety Act, and we're all worried about youngsters accessing violent, dangerous material. But what have they done with it? It's now a tool of censorship. Already we can see that the Online Safety Act is a tool of censorship. If it's there to protect kids, what does it need a crack unit of police officers looking through it all to do? How funny. 16-year-olds now can't read controversial news content unless they age verify, yet they're going to get the vote. Go figure.
A lot of people say you are the most charismatic person in Westminster.
Not saying much for the others, is it?
Well, I was going to ask you, is there anyone else who's charismatic in Westminster?
There's a few, because there are a few characters there. Of course there are. Of course there are.
Don't say Richard Tice, and don't say Lee Anderson.
Well, Lee Anderson certainly is. No doubt about that. No, of course there are characters. Both parties have characters. The Scots Nats have characters. Of course there are characters. It's just that at the top of this government, there is Rachel Reeves. Good Starmer. I mean, it just isn't very. Now some could argue we had enough of charisma with Boris, and we need technocrats to run the country. That's the counter argument.
Yeah.
To be joking about it, but I don't know. I think people want a bit more than that.
Okay. Listen, I'm a self-confessed fan of Trump. I think he's great. What's he really like?
So great. No, I mean, look, he's enormous fun to be with. He's very high energy. Don't upset him, because I know what it's like if he's not happy with you. Amazing, dynamic, energetic. You can agree with him. You can disagree with him. You certainly can't ignore him. And I've had enormous fun in and around Trump, his sons, the extended family. I like them very much.
You speak to Trump often?
No, not that much now. I mean, in the in-between years, yes. When he was, camped down in Mar-a-Lago waiting for the next run. Yes, these days he's got a bit on his plate.
A little bit. Have you been invited to the upcoming state banquet?
No.
I heard Ed Davey gave his invite back. Maybe we'll get his.
Yeah, they wouldn't invite me. Hey, we're only 15 points ahead in the polls. I've only known him personally as a friend for over a decade. But that shows you the attitude of this Labour government. They're insulting. They talk down to me. They don't invite me to that. I wrote to him about members of the House of Lords. I haven't even had a reply. And I'd remind Keir Starmer, I got rid of David Cameron. I got rid of Mrs. May. If you go on being rude to me, I'll get rid of you.
Strong words from Nigel there. How important is it for us to have a good relationship with the US?
I think it's very important. One of our closest allies. Of course, we need to have a good relationship to them. And when the world is in such a febrile state, and we know we need NATO, we might need their support sort of militarily, we do need to. And I think we need to collect all of the democracies around the world and come as a united force together. So yes, we do need them.
So what steps should Keir Starmer be taking then to improve things between the two countries? Because arguably, and if I speak to Nigel, he thinks that he should be the person who's going between us and Trump.
Oh, come on now. He went up to see Trump's new golf course, didn't he? He went up there even though he can't play golf. Yes, he was up there. Well, look, there's always diplomacy. And the Brits have been brilliant at that. And that's what we need to excel in, diplomacy, intelligence. And we've always been a country that got on with other countries. We were always the sort of in-betweener, couldn't we? We could speak to Europe, we could speak to America, we could speak to Canada, we could speak to Australia. So we need to have that role again. And some of that comes down to the rule of law. And I'm afraid two-tier Keir has let him down on that, because people have always come to Britain because they said the people were as good as their word. Their law was the best in the world. We'll hold court cases here. And that was really important. So not only our brilliance, and remember, we didn't just win one world war, we won two, and we helped the rest of the world. We gave people the internet. We gave them all kinds of sport. So this country has always punched well above its weight. But it's been a friendly nation and a nation as good as its word.
Well, you say two-tier Keir. I don't genuinely look at this country and think, oh, under the last year, suddenly things become more two-tier. Plenty of communities in this country have been saying it's a two-tier system for the last few decades, but suddenly now it's everyone else seems to think, oh, Labour have ruined the system and now everything's messed up. If you ask black people if they thought that there was a two-tier justice system in the courts, they'd say, yes, black people are getting proportionately more time behind bars for the same crimes as their white counterparts. If you ask them about policing, people of colour would say, yes, the police are stopping and harassing black people more so than they are white people. But now suddenly we're saying, oh, no, yes, there's a two-tier system. It seems to have always been this way. It isn't just under two-tier Keir.
I would have said we were a rules-based system. I would have said we were a civilised country. But I would say in just over a year, we've become a self-loathing country. We've become a two-tier state. And I'd say, and we're collapsing as a country. So I think, unfortunately, whether you're talking about justice, whether you're talking about policing, whether you're talking about freedom of speech, two-tier Keir absolutely lives up to his name. And that is why people have been so upset that a mum, Lucy Connolly, who did a tweet, and it was an abhorrent tweet, and she notes that, and she took it down straight away. But why did she get 31 months for that? The disproportionality is what went on. At the same time, he was releasing people out of prison. Violent offenders were coming out of prison, or other people got less for their prison sentence. So this two-tier Keir, again, it goes back to the whole hypocrisy, doesn't it, of this government. That's where two-tier comes from. One rule for you, one rule for us. And I'm afraid this government seriously suffers from it.
But as I explained to Nigel there, Ricky, the ex-Labour councillor, he pleaded not guilty and he was tried by a jury. And by, as your standards, our great British system of law prevailed. Our own countrymen deciphered that, no, this guy's not guilty. Lucy Connolly said, I'm guilty of what I did. And so she has to face the judgment for that.
And there was a very different system. You're right. She was advised to plead guilty because that would be the best way forward. She was a law-abiding citizen, and she did. And that was the outcome. He didn't. You're quite right. And he said, I will go to a jury of my peers. So on that one, you're right. You're comparing apples and pears. I'm not. That's why I talked about the disproportionality of the sentence she got for putting up a tweet, then removing it. acknowledging it was wrong, and she's getting a worse sentence than other violent criminals. And remember, he didn't say, oh, I've got to get people out of prison. Remember the thousands of people he let out of prison. He didn't say, oh, the first person who should come out is somebody who put up a tweet. Oh, no, lock her in for a lot longer. He was definitely making an example of her. And he you know what? He's tin-eared. I'll call him tin-ear Keir now. He doesn't listen to the mood of the country. He doesn't know what's going on. And that is another problem, that within a year, he's so far removed. And again, I bumped into a load at the station, actually, of the mums who've been protesting on the street, looking, about males in the Bell Hotel, and they don't feel safe on the streets, and neither do their kids. They would say to take care. They're being silenced when other people aren't. They can't protest where other people can protest every Saturday in central London.
So do you think censorship has gone too far in this country then?
I think, again, if you totally believe in free speech, you've got to take the good with the bad, the people who do agree with you and the people who don't agree with you. So again, we've got to watch out if everybody agrees with free speech as much as they say. We already have laws. If you're inciting hatred or inciting violence, that is a crime. But I think, parents talking on social media that they don't like a teacher, you shouldn't then have a couple of police knocking on your door. You shouldn't have one of the, I would say, the UK's best comedy writers, who wrote Father Ted, having 5 armed officer arresting him as he comes off a plane for some tweets. I didn't actually think they were that bad at all, but arrested for that. Really? Aren't there other things you should be doing? Like there's criminals, there's robberies, there's burglaries, there's stuff going on. Sort that out, not people who've said something hurty words online.
So back to Farage. You could see he's clearly upset he wasn't invited to the state banquet. Should he have been?
Well, I think, again, that's another mistake by Starmer. He is right. He has known him for years. I thought, well, there's a spare place now. David doesn't want to go. It actually puts Starmer in a more difficult position. You can't say the table's full. Damn, Davey did that. No, I think it's all really rather silly that he didn't invite him along for that. And also, he's obsessed with Farage. Whenever you're listening to PMQs, he always has to talk about Farage. One of the first lessons in politics is don't talk about your opponents. Don't give them airspace. But he's absolutely obsessed.
Well, Farage says he's coming for Starmer. He got rid of Cameron. He got rid of May. If you keep being rude to Farage, he'll get rid of Starmer next. Should Starmer be afraid? Should he be scared?
What do you call it when 2 boxers are in the ring? Do you call it trash talking?
Trash
I'm going to
talk,
get you.
yeah.
I'm going to get you. This is what you do. You do this. I mean, he is on firm ground to say that at the moment, because he is, I think, 15 points clear of Labour. Labour have let themselves down. I mean, I knock on doors all the time. And Labour voters don't like Keir Starmer. They didn't realise one of its first acts was going to bring in the winter fuel allowance, the removal of that from pensioners. So he started off so badly, Starmer. And I'm afraid the people who's hoovering up a lot of those Labour votes is Farage. Cities like St Helens now, the councillors there all had been Labour forever. They could fall to reform. So he is right. He is on the march for Starmer's job, and he is knocking Starmer out. But that's also Starmer's fault for being such a bad leader in such a short space of time.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Many people struggle to muster the willpower to go jogging or drag themselves to the gym. However, research suggests even the exercise averse may not be entirely doomed, as just 1 minute of vigorous activity a day is linked to a longer life. The study, led by Professor Emmanuel Stamatakis of the University of Sydney, looked at nearly 3,300 Americans with an average age of around 51, all reported doing no structured exercise. They were asked to wear trackers on their wrists to log their movements. It found that those who did just a minute of vigorous incidental activity a day, such as bounding upstairs, chasing after kids, or heaving heavy shopping bags, had a 38% lower risk of dying over the following 6 years compared to those who did nothing. Also, the study suggested that this exercise could be split into half a dozen 10-second bursts. Esther, I'll tell you what, I can't wait to tell my wife that I've been right all these years. 1 minute was long enough. That's all we
Exactly.
needed.
Do you know, I nearly said that for Phil. If only he'd do 1 minute of vigorous exercise a day, we'd all be fine. To be fair, Phil, whilst he'll do no jogging, running, swimming, any of these things, he does walk everywhere. So that sort of incidental, accidental exercise he does do. He does walk upstairs. He does walk all of that, but he won't then break out into a sweat, as it were, and bound up a couple of stairs. But I do think it's good and it's important. But I think this idea that it's only a minute a day, when I sort of was reading this sort of report, it was like you were already going up those 5 flights of stairs.
Yeah.
Now you've got a power run the last minute or something. But, look, you don't get fit sort of quick. It is part of your lifestyle. The only thing I will admit, right, and it started yesterday, right, women have got a certain age, got to be careful you don't get those terrible arms. And I thought as my sort of New Year, though it's not anywhere near a New Year resolution, was going to be my arms. So I literally started little tiny weights.
Okay.
Yesterday, I cannot move my arms today.
Well, it's working. It's working.
Well,
The guns
when
look
you
good.
see me in cap sleeves,
Yeah.
you'll go, oh, she's now proud of her arms. Until then, they'll stay 3/4.
This is better than just putting people on Ozempic or Manjaro, right?
Yeah, all of this, quick ways to get fit or get slim, they don't work. They've all got unintended consequences. And actually, most of those jabs get rid of muscle tissue. And as I've said to people who are on them, who I know who are taking them, and by the way, there's a hell of a lot of people in Parliament who are on those fat jabs.
Nigel Farage says Robert Jenrick is.
Well, who am I to say? But I just know there's a lot of people who've gone from large to very small in a short space of time. But I do say to people, when you're not eating, I do hope you take in vitamins, minerals, amino acids, etc. Because when they talk about ladies now are losing the hair or the teeth or the nails, it's because they're not eating at all. And their body does need vitamins, minerals, amino acids, etc. So whatever you choose to do, make sure you're doing it properly.
This is easy. A minute a day is nothing. But I bet there's still people who will be too lazy to even do a minute of vigorous exercise a day.
We just walk everywhere. I'd say walk to as many places
Power
as you
walk.
possibly can. Well, Phil definitely doesn't power walk. But you walk, do some kind of physical exercise. Or what do they say? As you're making that brew, as you're at the sink and the kettle's on, do the pounds of sugar, don't they? Touch your toes. Do you see what I mean? Use that time as that kettle's boiling. I don't book on.
What daily activity would you recommend for someone to do vigorously for a minute a day?
Let me ponder. Is it just a minute, not 3? Just a minute.
Just a minute, as long as it takes. But a minute minimum.
Yeah. Then I guess
I know what you're thinking.
I'm thinking touching toes.
Oh yeah.
I'm thinking.
Oh, your own toes.
Yeah. Well.
Oh.
Do you like toes? Do you like feet?
No.
Phil hates toes and feet,
Yeah.
which I have to say is a bit of a pain because usually, say I'm cold in bed, he's always hot, I'm always cold. The only thing he's usually good for is to be a radiator for my toes. And he hates them and he won't let me do it.
Oh, well,
No, that's mean.
No,
Do you let your a new wife?
My new wife, I do let her touch. I do let her toes touch me.
Warm herself up on you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll tell him when I get home. I'll say you're the only one who doesn't feel.
Right. From exercise vigorous to something just as naughty. A slightly quirky one to finish up. Sir Benjamin Slade, a 79-year-old multimillionaire, is on the hunt for a significantly younger woman who, in his words, will be a good breeder to bear a son who will inherit his vast 1,300-acre estate in Somerset. Now, Sir Benjamin has already had a kid, apparently with American poet and composer Sahara Sunday Spain, 46 years his junior. But he was still apparently unsatisfied after she bore a girl, meaning he still had no true heir to his fortune. Now he's back to square one. So this is it seems just strange and old-fashioned that he has to have a boy to be the heir to his multi-millions. He's got a daughter already, but he wants to find a good breeder.
Yeah,
to
it all
make
sounds like a
boy.
load of nonsense. I'd call him Sir Benjamin Scoundrel. He sounds like a right cad, doesn't he? I mean, couldn't he have found somebody a little bit earlier on? No, 79. He's now on Tinder looking for a woman.
Yeah.
And of course, he then says he wants to breed, not a wonderful term there. So that already says, oh, so the woman's got to be, because I think women of about 50 came forward. Oh, no, it's got to be much younger than you because they've got to be of breeding age.
Yes.
So I'm thinking dirty perv. So, no, I didn't like the sound of the store. And I also thought it sounded like a really bad chat-up line to see whoever he could get. I've got thousands of acres. Come home with me, darling. I'll show you a good time. Ding dong. It had all of those horrible connotations to it. But it now seems he's quite happily now looking maybe for a hotel chain to take over it. So he wasn't really looking for a woman. He wasn't really looking for an heir. No, I have to say, he didn't come across very well, did he?
No, I don't
Some
think
of
he
his
did.
terminology, somebody said, well, why would you get a younger model or what have you? And he said, well, if I bought a car, I wouldn't get an old banger. I'd get a new one.
Makes a fair point. Yeah. Makes a fair point, I think. Someone tried to defend this to me and said that, no, this is really just a man who is lonely. He's an old man who's lonely. But if he's lonely, he can just go down to the local darts club or bowls club or whatever and make friends.
Yeah, well, if he's lonely, he doesn't have a cut-off point on the age of women he'll associate with. Really, like 35, I'm 79, but hey, 35.
What do you think about him having to have a male heir? Why can't he just leave the fortune to his daughter?
I'm sure he could have.
Yeah, he could have
sure
done. But
he could have.
Yeah.
I mean, that says to me, I mean, you know, I've heard all of the excuses in the book. So first of all, they've got to be like this, and then they've got to be this age. Then he needs to have a kid, and then he didn't like the kid. He seems to me like he's got an excuse for everything, doesn't he?
Indeed.
And then he did get a child, and then don't want that.
No, it's
Commitment
female.
phobe, maybe, or something.
I've never been on a dating app in my life. Never been
you
on
not?
one. No, never.
neither have
I've seen. Oh, okay. But I was going to ask you.
Oh, thanks. What I had. Hey, yes, always
Just
on that.
presumed you're always
right.
swiping
Yeah.
right. What should he be putting on his dating profile to attract the right kind of breeder?
Well, I'm not really sure that would be for him, really, would it? I mean, I think he's got to go through friends of friends, hasn't it? That's got to be somebody who says this could be a chap for you, because he will be thinking, oh, is it the right woman? Is she only after me for my money? You know, will we, I don't know, have anything in common? And I think he did go on an elite dating site as well. I'd just say now steer clear. I'd blacklist him from any kind of site whatsoever, because he seems to me all talk, doesn't he? He doesn't really end up with somebody.
I mean, listen, I'd do it. 79-year-old multi-millionaire. If he wants an heir, I'll jump at the chance.
You could just say,
Yeah.
I'll just take your name.
Yeah, that's
Just
it.
call me JJ Slade.
JJ Slade. That
Sir
sounds much better.
JJ Slade. I think it's got a
Perfect.
ring. Yeah, we'll just do that.
We'll just do that.
Yeah.
Right. Can you contact his people and sort that
I
out?
totally will. I'll say,
Wonderful.
I've got the son for you. Right? He's adult already. Don't have to go through all those changing the nappies, feeding him midnight, looking after him. I've got, yeah.
Perfect. Right. Sorted.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. The caffeine has officially worn off, and that is all we've got time for. Thank you for watching the Daily Expresso. Join us tomorrow, where the big boss, my gaffer, Sam Lister, will be sitting right here answering the best questions, letters, and comments from you wonderful people. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye-bye.